Welcome to Cruise Bright. In this video, we're sailing on one of Celebrity's oldest ships, the Celebrity Summit, for 7 nights through Alaska's magnificent Inside Passage, from Anchorage to Vancouver. We'll show you everything, from the itinerary, to the food, to the ship, from top to bottom, and of course what everything costs. To find out if a 23-year-old ship can hold up against the newer and bigger ships. Plus, we'll tackle the burning question, is cruising Alaska still worth it with sky-high costs and over-tourism? We chose Alaska for its proximity and cooler weather, and also this particular one-way route since we hadn't done it before. On this itinerary, we were sailing the southbound route through Alaska's Inside Passage, an over 1,000-mile sheltered sea route of fjords, inlets, and glaciers stretching from southwest Alaska to Washington State. We embarked in the port town of Seward, which is all the way up near Anchorage, and sailed down to Vancouver. Along the way, we cruised by Hubbard Glacier and stopped in Juneau, Skagway, Icy Strait Point, and Ketchikan, before a final sea day that included cruising through British Columbia's Inside Passage and finally disembarking in Vancouver. Typical of most Alaska sailings, it was a packed itinerary. Departing from Seward and going southward turned out to be one of the trip's highlights, and I would highly recommend it, with a few caveats we'll get into, if you haven't done it before. Given the age of the summit, I wasn't sure what to expect when we got on board, but when I did, I was very pleasantly surprised. The ship has a distinctly modern feel. It's a mid-sized ship, but by today's megaship standards, it feels fairly small, and that's not a bad thing since it's not overwhelming and you get used to the layout and getting around quickly. The Summit is one of the smallest of the Celebrity cruise ships, with an occupancy of 2,218 passengers. By contrast, the Celebrity Edge, part of their newest class of ships, has an occupancy of 2,918 passengers. So the Summit is about 30% smaller than the Edge in terms of gross tonnage. The Summit debuted all the way back in 2001. So on board, you won't find the latest and greatest in cruise ship innovations, and there's not a robot in sight, no water slides, bumper cars, or confusing gadgetry. What you will find, though, is a ship that's been immaculately restored thanks to a total refurbishment in 2019 that's held up remarkably well, good design, and an absolutely superb crew. As of this recording, 3 of the 4 Millennium-class ships have all undergone renovations as part of the Celebrity Revolution, a $500 million initiative to bring all their ships in line with their newer Edge class to create cohesion across the line. For a ship that debuted in 2001, it feels modern and fresh. The Summit is a return to classic cruising, with traditional layouts and open decks, where the destinations are front and center, so perfect for Alaska. It's also got the feeling of a classic 5-star hotel. So if that's your thing, there's quite a lot to like here. While some of the public spaces can feel a little cramped and busy at times, particularly in the evenings, there are plenty of other spaces that feel open and spacious. If some place feels too dense, there are always other places to go. But if you prefer a lively atmosphere teeming with fellow cruisers, there's that too. Celebrity bills itself as premium, and is having more premium quality food and wines than other lines. And it actually surprised me, but we found all the food to be very good, and in most cases, 8 or 9 out of 10, even in the buffet. Celebrity also touts itself as having a great wine program. They've even received awards for it. But to be honest, the wine selection, especially by the glass, for me, I didn't find it to be anything special. During its renovation, the ship's buffet area was completely redesigned to resemble an international marketplace, enhancing the whole buffet experience. And while there was ample seating and was overall a really nice atmosphere, it did get very crowded during peak dining times as expected. But the selection was fantastic, and Celebrity did a great job of catering to most tastes. As far as the food quality goes, it was far better than buffets on most other cruise lines. Another one of my favorite daytime venues on celebrity ships is the Spa Cafe, which sits inside the solarium and offers a continental breakfast and smaller, healthier options for snacks and lunch. Cosmopolitan is the main dining room located on 2 floors on decks 4 and 5 for all guests up to concierge class. Celebrity, like many other cruise lines, has opted to segment out guests based on their room type. While all guests staying in cabins ranging from inside to concierge class eat in Cosmopolitan, Aqua Class guests dine in a dedicated restaurant called Blue, while retreat guests, aka suite guests, dine in Lumine. All these dining rooms are spread over decks 4 and 5 in the aft of the ship. While the food and dining room was varied and good enough that you could easily never set foot in a specialty restaurant, the ship does offer a number of specialty restaurants too. Sushi on 5, located on, you guessed it, Deck 5, offers traditional Japanese fare. Tuscan Grill, down on Deck 3, offers contemporary Italian. And Le Petit Chef offers an innovative, immersive 3D dining experience with an animated tiny chef guiding you through your meal. The Summit has several bars and lounges to enjoy. Cellar Masters, the wine bar on Deck 5, also featured nightly entertainment. Rendezvous, a lounge on Deck 4 with a bar that featured nightly entertainment. The Martini Bar, where the bartenders perform nightly and it's a real crowd pleaser. On Deck 11 forward is the Sky Lounge, which offers some of the best views of the ship with floor-to-ceiling windows. This is also where events like trivia and Deal or No Deal happen, which we stumbled onto one evening and it was very entertaining. The Sunset Bar, located outdoor on the aft, was consistently popular even in the cold Alaska weather. Cafe El Baccio served specialty coffees and baked goods all day long, which were both very good. Other venues on the ship include the casino, the art gallery, the photo studio, shops on decks 4 and 5 that are predictably upscale, the theater hosting nightly shows, but I can't really comment on that since we didn't attend any, Camp at Sea, which is the kids club, the fitness center, the spa, the rooftop terrace, which shows movies, but due to weather, I never actually saw it set up. There's also a jogging track and an outdoor basketball court that I actually never saw anyone using due to the chilly weather. To round out the tour of the public spaces, there were 2 pools on the ship. The outdoor pool, which is, as you'd expect, remained mostly empty on an Alaska sailing, and the solarium, which is an indoor, adult-only space which, as you'd expect, did get quite busy during the day. On this cruise, we booked an inside cabin. Now, the rule of thumb for an Alaska sailing is never book an inside cabin, but it was an incredible deal and we'd set a strict budget. It was the only room type available on this sailing when we booked, and this was my 3rd time cruising Alaska, so we went ahead and pulled the trigger. Plus, the cabin and the ship were getting rave reviews. And the cabin did not disappoint. It's impeccable and very comfortable. We've done an in-depth room tour of our cabin, which is linked in the description below if you want to take a look at the stateroom in more detail. This was the first time I'd stayed in an inside cabin, and suffice it to say, it may have ruined all other interior cabins for me going forward. We booked the cabin as an inside guarantee, and a couple of days later after booking, were assigned a premium inside cabin up on deck 9, likely due to having celebrity elite status that I acquired through a match with Royal Caribbean. The room was right below the solarium, which proved to be perfect, especially early mornings when we could watch the spectacular scenery pass by and it felt like our own little balcony, for a little while at least. Other room types on the summit include ocean view, veranda, and a variety of suites. Suites guests also enjoy a private terrace on the top deck of the ship called the Retreat Terrace. And while this does constitute a ship within a ship, it's so discreetly placed at the forward of the ship, it doesn't take away from any of the public spaces. Most passengers probably would never even realize it was there. On an Alaska cruise, the real star of the show is Alaska. Our first stop was Hubbard Glacier, and our sighting was somewhat marred by bad weather and glacial fog. It was actually extremely hard to capture on camera since there were near whiteout conditions, but the captain did announce we were able to get up closer than they had all season, so we did have that. We had much better weather in Juneau, though. Juneau is the capital of Alaska, and it is not accessible by road, only by air or sea, with a population of little over 30,000. Juneau also has a lot of cruise ships coming into town. The day we arrived, there were 3 other ships in port: the Viking Orion, the Grand Princess, and the Royal Caribbean Radiance of the Seas. With multiple ships in port each and every day during cruise season, and thousands of cruisers they bring to town, there's been an uproar recently with some of the residents, resulting in a motion on the table to limit cruise ships into the port of Juneau and even ban ships on certain days. Juneau is also home to Mendenhall Glacier, which is really something to see. A 13.6-mile glacier that covers about 38 square miles and is estimated to be up to 3,000 years old. The next stop was Skagway, the northernmost point of the Inside Passage. It was once a critical access point for gold seekers seeking entry to the White Pass Trail, and later the White Pass and Yukon route, also known as the White Pass Railroad, one of the quickest routes to the Yukon gold fields. The White Pass Railroad remains the main tourist attraction in Skagway. Otherwise, the town is filled with mostly souvenir and jewelry shops housed in Gold Rush era styled buildings. The White Pass Railway does provide some spectacular views and an interesting narrated journey through the historically treacherous route. And while all the cruise lines will offer some type of extended excursion on the railway, you can always purchase tickets independently at the train depot in town, just steps from the port, for roughly $160 per person. Quite steep for a 2.5-hour ride, but also in line with the charges for most excursions in Alaska, a place that only has a short window of a few months every year to generate all their tourist income. The following day, we visited Icy Strait Point, which is a port that was created specifically as a stop for cruise ships about 20 years ago. It's the site of an old cannery that's now a museum and gift shop with a few restaurants, including an apparently very popular donut stand. And there's a free gondola lift that takes you to a higher access paid gondola lift that takes you to a zip rider. You can also purchase some local excursions. Alternatively, you can walk into the town of Hoonah, which is a 15-minute walk away, where we did see an eagle flying above, although there really isn't much else to do once you get there. But aside from spotting a few humpbacks here and there, which were usually a distance away, we didn't really see any wildlife on the cruise as a whole. On these itineraries to see wildlife, both marine and land, it's necessary to get out of the ports and into the water and wilderness. Unlike many newer cruise ships, the Summit still has multiple open decks for viewing. And on a sailing like this, it was perfect to really immerse yourself in the beauty surrounding you and the day-to-day life in ports. As we entered Ketchikan, the last port stop on the journey, we sailed through the Tongass Narrows, Ketchikan's main waterway that plays a crucial role in daily life, evidenced by the seaplanes whizzing by the ship. Ketchikan is known as the salmon capital of the world, since Ketchikan is home to 5 species of Pacific salmon. It's known for massive salmon runs during the summer months. However, we really didn't see any while we were here in port. It's also known for Creek Street, the town's original red light district, a boardwalk built on pilings atop Ketchikan Creek. The final day of the cruise was a sea day, spent scenic cruising through British Columbia's Inside Passage. Early the next morning, we disembarked in Vancouver. Earlier I mentioned we got an incredible deal, especially for a premium ship that offered a premium onboard experience. We booked our cabin for just $750 per person. So about $1,500 for the cabin all in, which at the height of cruising season was a steal. Other cruise lines and ships were charging significantly more for basically the same itinerary. In fact, the inflated prices are what held us back for so long. We picked up this sailing as a last-minute deal and booked just 5 days before embarkation. Luckily, we were able to use miles and points to offset the enormous costs of getting there and home, and that's the only reason it was doable. Leave a comment below if you'd like to see more on how to strategically deploy airline miles and hotel points to offset cruise costs. If you can't wait until the last minute to book like we did, booking at the edge of seasons, either at the very beginning or towards the end, can also yield significant savings. But be warned, the weather might be a bit difficult. One-way itineraries will definitely cost you less, but can also drive up travel costs, so your mileage may vary. But no matter which way you slice it, Alaska is an expensive proposition. Is it worth it? That depends on the eye of the beholder. So would we travel on the Celebrity Summit again? Yes, in a heartbeat. Overall, it was an excellent value for what we got, which I don't think we can say for other Alaska cruises on comparable ships or even less premium ships for that matter. And we got to rediscover the Millennium class ships, which I found delightful. Is Alaska worth it even at the height of tourist season? Yes, and even with the sky-high prices it commands, it's very worth experiencing. Alaska has some of the world's most spectacular landscapes and incredible wildlife, and if you haven't experienced Alaska's wildlife, it really is something to behold. Was Alaska worth it for a third time? Well, yeah. Leaving from Anchorage turned out to be one of the best parts of the experience, and now I want to go back and explore more. Probably take a train through Denali National Park and up into Fairbanks. If we hadn't come on this cruise, it's doubtful I would have ever made it to Anchorage and discovered a part of Alaska I'd like to return to. And isn't that what cruising does? Introduces you to new parts of the world where you want to return and explore further. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so we can bring you more cruise content like this. Thanks for watching.